Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Business Fun Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Wakeman. Today's episode is brought to you by my friends at Booking Protect. Any listing, any sector, anywhere, Booking Protect has you covered with the world's most comprehensive refund protection product. To find out how you and your organization can partner with Booking Protect to deliver a better buying experience to your customer, more peace of mind in their purchases, and how you and your organization can create a brand new stream of revenue, visit www.bookingprotect.com. Once again, that's bookingprotect.com, the global leaders in refund protection. My guest today is Anthony Gady. Anthony is with the Talladega Super Speedway in Talladega, Alabama. I wanted to have Anthony on because I've known Anthony for a couple years now, and I've been, I don't want to say a full-fledged mentor to him, but I have had many conversations with him. I've had a chance and an opportunity to watch him grow. I have really been happy to see the amount of growth he's achieved in his career. And he just completed his master's at Ohio University. So I was like, oh, come on, we'll have a little conversation. We'll talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And we had a really good conversation because Anthony's in his first designated leadership role in in Talladega. So we talked about what his philosophy and style of leadership is. We talked about how he learned from his mistakes and failures. We talked about the process of learning to be a manager. We talked about some of his favorite books that taught him how to be a leader, including Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun. We talked about getting feedback both as a leader, but also giving constructive feedback to your employees and your team. We talked about building a really good sales process in sports. We also talked about building a team. We got into some of the practices of culture that seem to have taken hold in sports business, and some of those that maybe even make sales agents look, less professional than they should. We talked about strategy. We talked about marketing. We talked about friend of the podcast, Brett Zalaski. We covered a whole lot of stuff. So I think this is a really good conversation. I hope you enjoy my talk with Anthony Gady here on the Business Fun Podcast. I want to welcome my buddy Anthony Gady from Talladega Super Speedway down in Alabama to the Business Fun Podcast. What's up, Anthony?
Oh, we're hanging in there, shake and bake, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is going to be awesome, right? Because you told me that this is your very, very first podcast, and I was like, well, I'm going to ruin it for you because you'll never want to do one of these things again.
No, really excited. Really excited to be on here. So thank you for inviting me. Really excited to dive in and talk best practices.
Yeah, no, I wanted to. I had noticed that I had been leaning a little bit more towards like technology, which I'm almost clueless about. Not really, but I don't know that much about. And I've done a lot more performing arts and theater stuff. So I was like, I wanted to get some sports people on, and I wanted to get some sports people that maybe are, either doing some innovative stuff, which I think you are, and then also are kind of growing into like larger roles and becoming people that maybe people should start paying attention to, which I also think is you. In case you ever need that, like as a quote for a resume, you can just steal that right off the podcast. It'll be great. But
definitely going to add that to my LinkedIn profile.
No doubt. But so I'm excited to share some of your ideas with the audience because I think they'll learn a lot because I learn a lot talking to you. So where I guess we can start is when you first got to Talladega. There wasn't necessarily how do I want to put it in a way that doesn't make it seem like it was a mess? Because it wasn't that. It was just that like you came in and brought a bunch of new ideas and new processes and kind of like a little bit more of a formalized structure. Would that be fair to say when you came in? Is that right? Would that be right?
Or
you describe it. Because I don't want it to sound like I'm kind of dogging somebody because it's not that at all.
Yeah, no. So it's a great question. So Josh Harris actually, with the help with Dan Rossetti, helped place me. A little bit about my background. Came from Columbus Crew soccer, the Crew, and then it's Columbus Crew Soccer Club. Started inside sales, worked my way up. There wasn't any it was just that time where I wanted to be in management, and there wasn't any opportunities with the crew. And I'd just known Dan and networked for a while, and I got introduced to Josh, and I came down, and Josh had been here for I think 3 to 4 years, and really started the ticket. I guess helped re-energize the outbound ticket sales. I guess the motto or the efforts. And so I was brought in to oversee the sales team, and it was, needless to say, it was something I'd never done before. So I had to learn really quick on my feet, not only in a new ticketing system, but how to be a manager. Just because you're a great seller does not equate to you being a good manager. So I would say that over these past 3 years of me being here, I have grown exponentially, not only because of my failures, but because of things that I'm able to learn from my team in regards to that. So the first 6 months, it was just learning the team, learning our processes, and Josh took a promotion and went down to Daytona. And now is their senior director overseeing their sales and guest services. And my current boss, Jake Carlisle, was brought in, and just could not be happier with him as my boss. He really instilled in me, which Kathy Burrows talks about, is you need to have a roadmap. You need to have a strategic plan. And he helped me see that, and we created it. And we've just really been fine tuning it over the past. It started as a 10 to 11 page document. And now we've got it down to, I think, 3 or 4, just because our guys are so dialed in and so locked in to that. And what we're doing is it's not hard. We tell our guys what we do is not hard. We pick up the phone. We're having conversations with people. It's just, is your attitude and your effort there, because that leads to results. So that's one thing that it's always been instilled in me, and I instill in my reps is, come in every day with a positive attitude and give everything that you have today, because the results will follow. So I guess NASCAR didn't really have a stick and ball model, because it used to be very operations based. And then with where the sport has been trending or going, they've seen the need for sales teams. So it's not like groundbreaking what we're doing, but we are trying to create some processes that other leagues and other teams have found success in our own way. Long-winded answer, I know, but just trying to cover all the bases.
The first answer is almost always the longest one, and the one that gets. And then after that, we go back and forth. So, see, as a gentle podcast host, I'm going to lead you, into these things very nicely here. What you did mention, though, that was pretty interesting, because a lot of times, I don't know if it's always been this way, or if it's just sort of a reflection of the society and the culture we live in right now, is that if I go to Anthony's Instagram page, all I see is like you living your best life. But you mentioned mistakes and failures and learning from them, and how important those were to your ability to develop as a manager. Yep. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I don't think that often gets highlighted enough, and I think it's very, very important, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, it becomes refreshing when you talk about the mistakes and the missteps you made, and some of the times you've fallen on your face, because I think it doesn't get enough coverage, and people think that if I don't get it right the first time, then I must not be good at something, or that I'm a complete failure, and that's not usually the case.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I guess kind of stemming back to my days in Columbus, and Brett, whenever you have him on, he'll probably echo this, is I made my fair share of mistakes, even as an entry level rep, understanding, CLMs, career limiting moves, like don't say this, don't badmouth, other things. Like, we're supposed to highlight our property, and our brand is different, but we have to live that brand. So just owning up to it. Like, if you make a mistake, you just learn from it. Just don't let it happen again. I'm a very firm believer of, second chances. For me, I know, like I said, I'm not perfect. But what I mean by learning from those mistakes is, really harnessing and understanding, okay, well, this is the decision-making process that led to that. Where did we go wrong, or what could I do better? And so one of the things that I'll do with my team, I did it when I came back from National Sports Forum, was I got my guys together, got my team together and said, hey, I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes. I'm going to walk away from the board. I'm going to walk out and I'm going to put pros, things that I'm really good at, and the things that you guys want to see change, or how I can improve as your manager. Because unfortunately, we only receive feedback traditionally at the end of the year, right, when we're doing performance evaluations. And so I feel like there is need for continuous feedback, not only when you're managing down to your employees, but when you manage up, whether it's to your director or empowering your team to really give constructive feedback. Some of those things that are on that, hey, I want you to improve on or don't do this, is, hey, don't send out call numbers. Well, unfortunately, that is a metric that I can't do. But if you want to have more one-on-one coaching and more training development, hey, great, we can certainly do that. It's just etching it into calendar. So, again, just have an open door policy and just being really, I guess, open to feedback, because at the end of the day, I believe wholeheartedly that, you got to give everything that you have today to be better for tomorrow, even though tomorrow's never a given.
Right. Now, there's two things here. The first thing is you talked about always giving your best and doing the best you can today. And there's a really good, and I'm going to try to dig it up, I think it's episode 174 of the Jocko podcast, and he was talking about setting standards for yourself. And I think that's very important. The other thing, though, that is more like that was more of a statement. This is a question, though, is you talk about continuous feedback, and then you talked about having an open door policy. I know from experience, right, there's a lot of people who talk about having an open door policy, and then they talk about getting continuous feedback, and they mouth the words, right, and they might even have the best intentions, but it never becomes something that takes hold, right? It never becomes something that actually is useful for the organization. How do you make sure that people take advantage of the open door policy? How do you make sure that you are getting the constant feedback and it's not just surface level, oh, Anthony, you're great, right? You're the best manager I've ever had. How do you really get real useful information and feedback, and make sure that you get it in an ongoing basis? What do you do to encourage that?
Well,
that was a repetitive question, by the way.
No, it's okay. I know where you're going with this, and so if I could take a picture and send it to you, how you start with an open door policy is you don't have a door. So I have a cube, and so there is no door for me to shut. So it is a proverbial, literal open door into my cube, which is my office. But great question. In regards to that is, we all have responsibilities to meet goals, hit deadlines, achieve budgets, etc. But one thing is if your rep or your coworker or whatever, they're having issues, it's okay to stop what you're doing and be there. While manager is a title, you're more of a coach. You're more of someone who they should look up to, and how I believe that individuals can stay true to the open door policy and feedback is putting one-on-ones on the calendar. It doesn't have to always be about work. You need to care about people inside these walls that is work, as well as if their personal life is if they're dealing with stuff, you need to have in the back of your mind. Because if it comes down to work-life balance, right? If you have a good work-life balance, everything should, quote unquote, be doing well. So, but for me, for organizations, is you have to stay true to your word, because unfortunately, trust is earned, not given, whether it's through sales or through a sales conversation or through your reps. So you have to be there not unconditionally, but you have to always be there and be open to that. Otherwise, if you say it one time and then the next time they come back and then you bite their head off or you're busy and you don't give them that, then they're never going to come back and ask for that feedback. So it's, again, just really having that just open mind to, hey, I am here to help and to coach and to help you get to that next step in your career, whether that's, with us or with another organization. So again, long-winded, but hopefully that makes sense.
Good, because the note I made here on my page here was that you seem to be deliberate in your interactions, right? And and I know that is number one, is difficult, but number two, it takes focus. And so, like, a lot of what I hear from you is like really trying to nail both of those, right? Which is like you want to be have a focus on the relationships, right? Because that was something we talked about, like, as we were preparing for this thing, was a focus on relationships, but then also being really deliberate and intentional in the way that you engage with people. And you said a couple things that really I can empathize with, because when I was a manager, before I was this iteration of me that you all know, was an awful manager. And it was because, like you were saying, I sometimes got so busy that I didn't recognize or wouldn't allow myself to recognize that if I spent a minute or two or even 5 or whatever it took to help develop somebody and give them the tools to be successful, that it would relieve some of that pressure that I was feeling in the moment. And so I think that, like, when you talk about really having to follow up and follow through and be consistent in this thing, it's very important, because I can see in myself the opposite side. And, since those earlier periods, and, whenever I do have to deal with people now, I think, or in a management or coaching situation, I do a better job of doing what you said. And I think it's a reflection of taking the step back and seeing how awful I was at it to begin with. Now, you being a new manager, how did you develop that mindset from the start, or did you start out sort of in a position where you were a little bit, I don't want to say awful, because I don't think you probably were nearly as bad as I was, but like where you struggled with this?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have a mentality of, like I said earlier, just giving everything that you have every day. And, from a sales standpoint, it's how many phone calls can I make? How many quality touch points can I make in a day? Can I make a difference in, someone's life, and, help them develop memories with their kids and coming out to games or races or what have you. And one of the things that actually, I just got my master's from Ohio University, their PMSA program, actually just graduated a couple weeks ago. The first class that we went through was leadership. And I remember it was taught by Dr. Greg Sullivan, and I honestly learned the most from that. I got the most from it because and that was probably, I started that probably 9 months after I started. And I didn't have like a specific management style. In regards to that, like, I let my guys like run their own business. I let my team empower them. How can you? Every person's different, and so through this leadership class, we just learned about how to not techniques, but the differences of managing across, managing up, managing down. What are intrinsic motivators? What are extrinsic motivators? Like, every single person is motivated differently, but how can you harness that and get the most out of each person? And so for us and for me, I try to have not one-to-ones with them all the time, but we'll go to lunch, or we'll grab an adult beverage after work, or go play golf, and we'll just talk about
an adult beverage. You can say beer or whiskey. Yeah. It's in the South. It's fine. This is not like that kid friendly. Jeez, come on, man.
Right. Well, just trying to be politically correct, but
no room for that here. Come on.
Well, so So we'll talk about, things that are going well, and, especially it's so critical when someone starts to really make them feel as part of the team. I remember starting with the crew when I came in as one, and, I'm not going to say I'm the most likable person, but I was known to ruffle some feathers, in good and bad ways. But for me, it's, I know how it is to be new. And so I just I never want my guys or my team to ever feel like they're an outsider. What we do is team focused, and sales is very individual focused as well. But there has to be team camaraderie, especially with, when you celebrate achieving revenue goals or selling out our infield. Like, we are there to celebrate, and like, wow, again, like this is just a job. Like, you want to make it a career, and like 10, 15 years from now, like, we remember, celebrating selling out the infield, or, when I was at the crew, we were, celebrating, just how we helped grow, our average attendance, just really those small wins that you just remember grinding out, but just being there and celebrating. And so, like, again, we want to, from my management style, it's, how can we be inclusive, but also help highlight individuals as well? I guess it's more of the proper terminology would be, hold on, let me try and remember back to school, display servant leadership, which again is, again, another term. Most people know it, but, again, learn that through that class.
And you mentioned this idea of like taking the leadership class and not really having like a style when you went in. And I know we've been kind of talking around like your management and leadership style.
Right.
Have you ever really taken the time to think about like, or create or come up with like a leadership philosophy? Like that you like would, like these are like, maybe, and I don't know, so don't allow me to put words in your mouth. But like these are like kind of the three core ideas, that kind of guide how I look at leadership or how I try to approach managing my team.
Mm-hmm. To be frank, no, I haven't, but it's obviously something that as I aspire to, I guess, grow not only professionally, but personally, it is something that would probably be good to know for an interview. When people do ask you about, rather than me giving the long-winded 5-minute response, hey, these are the three pillars that I embody, which for me, again, for my sales team is, what we embody here is, again, attitude and effort leading to results. We work hard, and then we celebrate. It's not work hard. There are some teams that they say work hard, play hard, right? I mean, for us, it's, hey, man, like do your job, kind of like, you're an Alabama guy, so like Nick Saban. So we talk about it as like, hey, be really, really good at what you do, right? Be like, own your role, like, right? So you're running your own business, own what you do, and everything else, if everyone else does that, then we will be able to achieve this, and then we can celebrate. So, again, I know the Alabama, I mean, we are in the state of Alabama. I'm from Ohio, so coming down here into SEC country has been a little bit foreign, and I still don't have an SEC team, so it's okay.
Well, you should probably cheer for the University of Alabama. I mean, that is a good bet.
I mean,
it is my school, so.
True. No, I know you. I know you went there, and I will refrain from bringing my college allegiance to the Ohio State University into this, so it's okay.
You were a nice kid until then. But what I do like about what you're talking about here is is the idea of taking ownership of your role, right? And another thing that you talked about that I think is interesting in the highlight is the way that you, number one, you empower your team, right? You give them the ability to own their destiny, right? And then you also talk about having both individual and shared goals. Mm-hmm. One thing I'm kind of curious about how you do it, because I know maybe number one, it's like because I know you more, better than like I know some other people that I've had on the podcast, right? So I can ask you these questions and
Right.
with like a little bit more of an idea about the thought process that lays behind it, or the knowing that you won't get mad at me if I ask you the question, either one or the other.
Right.
But so I noticed that like you talked a lot about celebrating and rewarding each other and like coming together and growing as a team. But on the other side, we see LinkedIn and Twitter and all these things are like we see so many pictures of, and you're seeing the air quotes here, culture, right? And really, in my opinion, right? Because I know obviously it's not everybody's opinion, because if it was if it was just my opinion and everybody agreed with me, nobody would do it. You know, where does it go from being culture, team building, and great to what we see a lot of times on with tie clipping videos and like wrestling belts and like like things that I think put the sales teams in positions where they don't look professional, where they look kind of it makes them look like I guess less professional than they should, because they're already working in a really tough job of selling a lot of times to business buyers, corporations, individuals who are older, more mature, maybe more experienced than they are. And then if you like look somebody up on the internet and you see a bunch of tie clipping or like pie in the faces and stuff, I guess I'm being long-winded. I really I appreciate and I love the team building and rewarding people, but I also am really concerned about destroying somebody's ability to be seen as a professional. Here's the question: how do you manage that, right? Because I don't see that stuff from you.
Yeah. So, couple of things. So I know we're in the digital age, right? And so that is all of these posts, and for me, I mean, you'll probably see on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. Like I don't post like Twitter. I don't post a lot. Like for me, like maybe it's because I didn't grow up with instant. Well, I guess I did, but didn't really have it like instant messenger or text. So like for me, like I'm a very face-to-face person, and I don't believe that my team, again, that's their motivators. I don't think that they're really that concerned about having me, their boss, post a picture of them winning a belt, for having the most revenue for last week. What we do is we have accountability Mondays. So every Monday we'll send talk time and revenue and just talk. Whoever's top, we'll just let them. Hey, awesome job, Dean or Josh, or Greg or whoever. Where did you find success? And those success stories resonate within our team. And we just started recently, and it's actually working really well. Those teams that are, doing the tie clippings and stuff, like as a manager, like I think they're promoting their culture. And I think there's not an obligation, but I think that they do have to showcase, because they are recruiting. Like they are trying to recruit college kids or sales, the people who want to work in sports. And so some individuals, I think it's whatever Gen Z or this generation where millennials, or however you want to refer it to, is some people want that instant gratification, right? Like you talked about at Instagram of living the best life, and they're like they show those. And again, I'm gonna fence it here, and I'm gonna say that it's needed, and it's like a double-edged sword, right? It's good for those individuals who want that, and I think it's very important to celebrate successes and to share those stories. Whereas if I'm a business and I'm looking at LinkedIn and seeing this guy just got promoted, like for me, like that's exciting. Like that means that he's doing the right things. Again, I've never owned a business, so I don't have that, I guess, thought process on, okay, well, this guy just got promoted, like I'm not going to buy from him. I wouldn't think that. But again, I think that we as a we as a track, we don't do a lot of social selling. We talked about it earlier about we still have fans who call in and they ask us to mail them things like ticket information, which we'll gladly do, but they don't have a computer or they don't have an email address. We still have paper renewals. So, again, it's about, for us, it's about staying true to your brand, staying true to your culture, to your overall brand culture and how you want that to be personified into the public. And so you are right. Like, I don't post a lot. And is that me not building my personal brand? I don't know. I like to say that my actions within work, it'll be on the resume, like those will speak louder than a post about us selling out the infield for the 10th race in a row. Like, it's for us, it's more of a, hey, we know we're doing the right things. And if people want to recognize us and ask us for these things, great, we'll share it. But for us, we are comfortable knowing that we are doing the right things and finding success. So again, long-winded answer, but I'm going to fence it.
Like you've been on a podcast before.
No, I've listened to a bunch of podcasts with obviously yours and Troy Kirby's and everything. But I mean, for me, it's I'm not going to knock someone for doing it because I think it's needed, but just tactfully, just don't do your friends and family offer on LinkedIn.
Oh, you bring up another one that I don't really, I don't dig the friends and families and the discount stuff. I mean, but that's just sort of, it should be a disclaimer at the front of the podcast or anything I write, which is like going, Dave's going to basically never discount anything. And if he has to, it will break his heart. That's a big thing. But, but I was really curious about what you had to say about the culture idea, because I do understand rewarding people, and I do, like, if you're doing something great, it's awesome to do that. Or even
right.
like, I'm not even like so concerned about like the thing with the Pelicans, and they had the video of their sales team and they were super excited when they won the draft lottery. I think that's totally appropriate, right?
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? It's some of the other stuff, right? It's like some of the stuff where it seems like it's all you're promoting. It's like if you're the manager, and one thing that I love about what you do is that there is a certain amount of professionalism that you need to admit, right? There is a certain amount of education that you want to teach everybody along the way, and right, part of the motivation that you get from your job or the reward, it doesn't have to be in your face on social media, because that doesn't necessarily set you up for success long term. And also, to me, right, coaching a youth soccer team and raising a child, it's like I want to teach the kids to be self motivated as much as possible, like to enjoy the process. Right, it goes back to Nick Saban. Right, enjoy the process and understand that there's a reward in hard work and in doing things the right way, and becoming the best you can be because you've set goals for yourself and like you've worked towards those goals and you've continued to build towards those things. And it's just like, to me, I see these things and I understand that they're always done with the best intentions, but I just feel like it really hurts kids in the long run, because unfortunately stuff doesn't go away, right? If you make something stupid or you say something that's incomplete or anything, it's there forever. You can't outrun it. I mean, Lord knows I wouldn't, when I was like 23 or 24, I hope nobody has any documentation of stuff I did.
Yeah, well, right. And sometimes like you'll go on Facebook and you say, oh, you have memories. And it's like, you look back on some stuff you posted back in college, it's like, yeah, I got to delete that. Like, that's not, like, that doesn't represent my brand at all. But one of the
just
things
don't
that
look
I
at
think,
those anymore. Just try not to look.
No. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I'll never forget was so our old VP Clark Beacom, when I was with the crew, he told a story of he was with the Saints and he was selling and everyone was like high-fiving or whatever, and I think the owner walked by and he said, "Oh, congrats," but something about like get back to work, hey, that's your job, right? And so there was a few times where Clark would, when I was with the crew and I'd, make a big sale or whatever, he's just like, nice, way to do your job. And it was like that to me, it like true. Like we are, as salespeople, we are paid to sell. Like, and like, we shouldn't always need a ribbon or a post or whatever for doing our quote unquote doing our job. But, again, I do believe that there is recognition that does, if that's a way that a rep likes to like receive compliments like all the time, like I'm going to try to do it like face to face or, over an email, hey, keep up the great work, just small little things to help along that process. Right. But one of the books that my dad, when I actually first started, down here with Talladega, it's an old book. It's called Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun. It's I don't know, probably about 110 pages. But the reason why I bring it up is that initially I was like, why read a book about Attila the Hun when he was a brute, right? And there were just some really good tidbits in there, and I think one of the things that I took from it was it says a Hun's goals should always be worthy of his efforts, and superficial goals lead to superficial results. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess, but it's a quick book, quick read. There's some good ones in there, and the other thing that I think that every single person who's in ticket sales, whether it's leadership or just an individual, there's two books. Obviously, Kathy Burrows' Potato Chip Ticket Sales. It's such a great book. There's a lot of really good tidbits there. And then just from a personal side, it's The Energy Bus by John Gordon. Oh man, like that'll get your day started. Like I think that personally, like for me, I live a certain way in regards to tomorrow's never a given because of things that, everyone goes through trials and tribulations. But when you lose people in your life, you start to reflect on things. And, for me, I work in sports. I sell tickets. I get to talk to people like for a living. And life could be so much worse. I could be, I don't know, picking up trash or, selling insurance, like great jobs. Like I'm not discounting those at all, but like for me, like I work in sales. So like sports sales. And like for me, like I just think that everyone who works in sports sales should just like take a step back and take a deep breath and remember them starting out and what it took to get there, and just be humble and just appreciate where they are now, because it's been most likely it's been a lot of hard work and dedication to their craft.
Yeah, I think the point you make is a very good one, right? Is that, and it doesn't matter because, like, if you are selling, I know some insurance people. Like my insurance agent, she loves the insurance. She's like, and she's great at it, right? It's but it's appreciating that you can do something that you love, because not everybody is in that situation, or and it's either because they have like made some decisions that they weren't consistent with their values, or they may, sometimes people feel trapped in certain things, whatever reason. So be thankful and be grateful for that. And I think that's a really, really valid point. And, one of the things too is like, I would tell people is if they don't enjoy being in sports sales or in sports, right? They thought like watching the games or watching the races or doing something, would be a lot more fun. It's like, just because you love sports doesn't mean you have to do it. And like, because I think sometimes people feel trapped like down one road. And I think what you said is pretty profound in the fact that, like, if you're not doing something that you enjoy and love, think through how you can, because I think that's pretty valuable. I mean, I have been extremely fortunate, right? Because there have been so many great opportunities that I would have used to have written off as luck, right? And now I understand that like the common denominator in some of these opportunities was me. So obviously I must have done something right. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that like I have been lucky, but I have been fortunate and worked my ass off to achieve a lot of these things. But I get to talk with people all day long about how to grow their business, like how to make themselves more successful, how to make their marketing more effective, how to identify markets and all these things. And it's fantastic because typically when I'm talking to people, there's a sense of hope and opportunity and optimism. And I was like, well,
Right.
if you can't get excited about that, then like you're like, what are you doing, right? And I think that's like approaching it like that. Like, my God, you get this opportunity to serve people, and give them an experience, give them something that brings them closer to the clients or their family, their friends, whomever, or like even strangers, right? Because that's like one of the beautiful things about sports is like you bring strangers together around like something that everybody loves. It's just unbelievable. And I think that point that you made is just really, really powerful about figuring out and making sure that you just take a moment to reflect on how awesome it is to be in a position to do something you really, really care about and you really, really love. And I think like if you are struggling with that, think through about why, right? That's a great question. And I think that with that sense of optimism, I want to point everybody towards where they can find you on the internet, because I know you also have to get to a meeting in a second. So.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that. Find me on
I'm
LinkedIn.
good like that.
Yeah, good segue, right? LinkedIn. It's just Anthony. Last name is Gady, Garfield, Arthur, David, Yellow. I don't have a website. I don't have like a blog or anything like that. But I am on the Twitter. Like I said, I don't tweet a lot. I think it's
I am on the Twitter.
I think it's at Slim Gady or at Slim_Gady. Which if you wanted to ask me about that, I will gladly help answer that. Long story short, high school they called me the real Slim Gady because Eminem's the real Slim Shady. So now I'm Slim, so it's Slim Gady. So, but yeah, no, would love to connect with any and all of you, help share best practices, and ultimately be a resource, because at the end of the day, you want to work with someone who you know, like, and trust, and it's the same for sales, same for any business. But would love to help be a resource any way I can. So again, Dave, really appreciate you having me on, though. Really appreciate it.
Oh, stop. We already did the podcast. You don't have to like kiss up to me now, but I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think that you really set a great example for, learning and growing and trying to be a leader who really embodies some of the best things about being a leader. And so I'm happy that we got a chance to connect and have you talk to my audience a little bit more about what you're up to. So thank you again.
Perfect.
Once again, I want to thank Anthony Gady for coming on the Business Fun podcast to talk about his experiences with NASCAR. As always, you can find me by visiting my website. It's www.davewakeman.com, where you can find my blog. You can find client list. There should be a calendar coming up soon. I'm going to also start adding a couple of new projects like books and worksheets and workbooks and things like that. So visit www.davewakeman.com to find out more about that. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Dave Wakeman. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at David Wakeman. If you are a fan of the podcast, I would love it if you would do a couple of things for me. Number one, if you find the content here valuable, please share it with a friend, a colleague, a coworker, anyone you think would find value from the podcast. Second, if you really listen to every episode, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, all of the major platforms at this point. And then finally, if you've shared it, subscribed, if you could leave a review, that would be really, really great, because it helps people find the podcast. It helps encourage more listeners, and it makes sure that I continue to deliver these really great interviews and these really great conversations for you. As always, I want to thank my friends at Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection. To find out more about working with Booking Protect to deliver a better buying experience for your customers, more peace of mind in their purchase, and creating a new stream of revenue for your organization, visit them at www.bookingprotect.com. While you're there, make sure you visit their blog, where you can find all kinds of great new content that we're putting up. There is an ebook about customer service in the digital age, at the top of the blog page. There's a lot of new content about the bottom of the funnel and converting online sales. It's a really great resource. They're a really great partner. Make sure you check them out. Visit www.bookingprotect.com for more information. And finally, I want to thank you again, as always, for listening. Until next time, take it easy.